My name is Alice Hayes. I was never the favorite. That honor belonged to my younger sister, Chloe. From the time we were kids, she was the light in the room, smiling loud, the type of child neighbors remembered. Our mother, Eleanor Hayes, adored her. She's just like me, she'd say with a hand on Chloe's shoulder, as if the rest of us weren't in the room. And maybe in her mind, we weren't. I was quiet. I read books. I learned how to sew before I could ride a bike. Too serious. My mother used to say, not unkindly, but not kindly either. She said it with a sigh, like I was a disappointment she'd accepted long ago. When friends came over, it was always Chloe she showed off. I remember once when I was about 10, Eleanor was hosting a brunch for her bridge group. I was dressed neatly and had helped prepare the fruit tray. As I came into the living room, she caught sight of me, waved quickly, and mouthed, "Not now, Alice." Later she explained, "It's just you're hard to explain. You wouldn't enjoy the chatter anyway." Arthur Vance, our father, never made me feel that way. He was quieter than Eleanor Hayes. He worked as a machinist for over 40 years, the kind of job that leaves oil under your nails no matter how long you scrub. He never missed dinner, never forgot a birthday, never raised his voice. He didn't show off, but he noticed everything. When I brought home a perfect score on a math exam, he stuck it on the fridge. Even when Eleanor rolled her eyes, "No one hangs test papers past middle school," she said. "It's not cute anymore." Dad just smiled and left it there. He treated us equally. That's what I held on to. Even when Eleanor bought Chloe a new dress for a dance and told me, "Well, you never go to those things," I reminded myself, Dad loves me the same. Even into adulthood, things didn't change much. Chloe still lived like life owed her good things. She had jobs, but nothing steady. When one didn't work out, Eleanor always had an excuse for her. It wasn't the right fit, she'd say. Or, the manager sounded jealous. Chloe smiled and coasted through while I built my career slowly, carefully, and alone. I moved out first, paid my own rent, fixed my own car, visited home on weekends, and somehow in every visit, I was still the guest no one expected. Arthur, though, always noticed when I was there. He'd leave the porch light on. He'd have coffee ready. "How's work?" he'd ask and mean it. I never had to fight for his attention. He gave it freely. That was the balance of our family. Eleanor and Chloe, orbiting each other loud and glittering, and me and Dad holding still in the center. I didn't realize how fragile that balance was until it broke. Dad retired at 65. He didn't throw a party. He didn't want one. He just came home one Friday with a brown box and a pair of work gloves and said, "That's it." At first, it felt good having him around more. He built a bird feeder. He started keeping a small garden out back. I'd stop by after work and he'd have something new to show me. Nothing grand, just small, useful things. That was who he was. Always fixing, always making something a little better. Then one morning, he missed a step going down the back porch. It was just 4 inches. He caught the edge of it with his heel and went down hard. Broke his hip. The surgery was quick, the recovery slow, too slow. He tried, but even with therapy, he couldn't move like before. He lost muscle, lost energy. Within months, he was mostly using a walker, then a wheelchair. He hated being still. Eleanor hated it more. "He just sits," she muttered once, not realizing I was in the room. "All day. Just sits there." Chloe nodded, flipping through a magazine. "It's depressing. He doesn't even talk much anymore." "Can you blame him?" I asked, standing behind them. They looked up, startled. Eleanor laughed a little too loudly. "We're not saying anything bad. It's just hard to see him like that." But they weren't seeing him. Not really. They were avoiding him. It started small. Eleanor stopped cooking full meals. Chloe claimed she was too sensitive to help with bathing or meds. Then came the travel brochures. I found one on the kitchen counter. A high-end resort in New Mexico. Spa, wine tasting, horseback trails. Looks nice, I said, holding it up. Eleanor glanced over. We're thinking of taking a little trip without Dad. Well, of course he can't fly like that. Who's going to be here with him? Eleanor waved a hand. You, I assumed. You've always been good with these things. They didn't ask. They just assumed. It kept happening. They went out more. Dinners, weekends away, sometimes without telling me. I'd show up to check on Dad and find him alone in the living room watching golf with the volume turned low. One evening, I arrived just before the care worker, Maria Davies, a retired nurse we'd hired part-time, showed up. She looked confused. Is no one else home? She asked. No. Why, I was told someone would be here to assist. I called Eleanor. She didn't answer. Chloe texted back 2 hours later. Out for dinner. Can't it wait? That night, I did the bathing myself. Dad apologized for the trouble. I said nothing. I couldn't bring myself to lie and say it was fine. Eventually, I asked them both to step up, rotate care days, manage meds, at least handle paperwork. Eleanor sighed. I didn't sign up to be a nurse. I have my own life, Alice. Chloe said, You're so good at this stuff. You're the one with the schedule and the binders and the phone numbers. I should have known something else was coming. About 6 months after Dad's fall, I noticed some things weren't adding up. His bank statements, ones I used to help him sort, stopped arriving. When I asked Eleanor, she said, I switched to digital, less clutter. I didn't push, but it bothered me. So, I logged into the online account one afternoon using the credentials I'd set up years ago. Access denied. I called the bank. The manager said the account permissions had changed. I wasn't listed anymore. That same week, I overheard Eleanor on the phone booking a week-long retreat. Just bill the deposit to the main account, she said. Main account? I asked later. She smiled. Your father's. We have power of attorney now. It's just easier. I froze. Since when? 2 months ago. We needed it. Medical decisions, legal stuff. You didn't tell me. Eleanor shrugged. It was handled. No drama. Chloe chimed in. You don't need to worry, Alice. We've got it covered. But they didn't. Not really. They'd taken control quietly, legally, and entirely. And I hadn't seen it coming. By the 8th year, Dad was down to 1 room. He didn't leave the house anymore. He stayed mostly in the den, where the afternoon light was soft, and the chair by the window had become his second skin. The garden was overgrown, the bird feeder empty. He spoke less, but when he did, he still asked how my day was. I'd cut my hours at work down to part-time. Maria, the care worker, could only cover 3 afternoons a week. The rest was mine. Eleanor and Chloe had drifted into the background completely. Chloe was between jobs again, but somehow too busy to help. Eleanor kept saying she had arthritis in her hands. I stopped asking. One Thursday, after a visit to the hospital for what was supposed to be a routine scan, the doctor asked me to step into his office. He didn't close the door. He didn't need to. Your father has late-stage pancreatic cancer, he said. We estimate months, not a year. Dad must have seen it in my face when I came back to the waiting room. I didn't speak. He just reached for my hand. That night, I emailed my job and resigned. There was no announcement at home. Eleanor didn't ask. Chloe said, Wow, that's a choice. But for me, it wasn't. Each day after that became sharper. There was no time to waste. I made meals Dad could swallow. I managed his meds, tracked appointments, read to him when he was too tired to open his eyes. One evening, while I was cleaning out a drawer in the den, I found a manila envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter. It was his handwriting. Neat. A little shaky but legible. Alice, if you're reading this, it means I've probably already lost the energy to say things out loud. I want you to have what I've been able to gather. It's not everything, but it's something that matters. Take care of yourself first. You've done more than enough for me. Love always, Dad. Behind the letter was a copy of a rental contract for a 2-bedroom apartment about 40 minutes from town. I recognized the name of the complex. We'd driven past it once on the way to a clinic. He'd pointed it out. Nice place, he said. Close to a park. He'd already made a deposit. And I knew why. Daniel Miller, the hospice case coordinator who sometimes covered Maria's shifts, had become something more than kind. We'd shared late-night conversations on the front porch, coffee and to-go cups, quiet understanding. We weren't official, but we weren't strangers either. When Dad found out, he didn't scold, he smiled. You deserve someone who stays, he said. And then, while I was focused on caregiving, he'd quietly planned something for me, for us. A wedding date penciled into the fall calendar, paid deposits, receipts, all tucked neatly into that same envelope. He never told Eleanor, never told Chloe, just me. The day before he lost the ability to speak, he whispered, "Start your life. Don't wait for permission." I held his hand and nodded. Dad passed quietly on a Sunday morning. I was with him. I just finished changing the sheets when I noticed his breathing had slowed. I sat beside him, held his hand, and waited. He didn't open his eyes again. There was no dramatic gasp, no last word, just the smallest exhale and stillness. I called the hospice line. I called Maria. Then I sat on the edge of the bed for a long while, not crying, not moving, just holding space. Eleanor and Chloe didn't answer right away. Eleanor finally picked up on the third call. "We're out shopping," she said. "You'll have to handle things." And I did. I made the calls, arranged transport, filed the death certificate, booked the church, picked the flowers. Chloe texted me later. "Let me know what time the service is. I'll see if I can make it." The morning of the funeral, I arrived early, straightened the chairs, greeted the first few visitors. Eleanor showed up late in a tailored black suit. Chloe came in after her, sunglasses still on. Neither offered to help, but when it was time for the eulogy, Eleanor walked to the podium like it was her stage. She said all the right things, spoke about Arthur's quiet strength, his devotion, his sacrifices. I stared at the floor and tried not to let the words hollow out my chest. After the service, I went home, our home. The house that still smelled like his soap and black coffee. I wanted nothing more than to be alone. But Eleanor and Chloe were already there, seated in the living room with wine glasses as if nothing had happened. "We need to talk," Eleanor said. I stood in the entryway, still in my dress. "Can it wait?" "It can't." Chloe held up a document. "This is a waiver," she said. "It says you agree not to contest anything in the estate. It's just a formality." I didn't move. Eleanor leaned forward. "We have the power of attorney, Alice. We've spoken to the attorney. We're inheriting the house. And what's left in the accounts? It's already being processed." I looked at the paper, then at them. "Dad just died," I said. "And we're not trying to be cold," Eleanor replied. "But these things move quickly. Best to get ahead of it," Chloe added. "You don't even live here anymore. You're getting married, right? You have your own place." I hadn't told them that. I didn't reply. Eleanor sighed. "Alice, please don't make this difficult. We've been through enough." I wanted to argue. I wanted to shout, but instead, I picked up a pen from the coffee table and signed the form. No one said thank you. Eleanor stood. You'll need to be out in 10 days. We've already contacted a realtor. I nodded once. Chloe poured another glass of wine. That night, I packed in silence. I took only what I needed. Clothes, Dad's framed photo, a stack of his notebooks, and the envelope he left me. No one came to the door when I left. 3 days after I left the house, my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. The number was familiar home. The home that wasn't mine anymore. I picked up. Eleanor's voice was sharp. "Where is it?" I said nothing. "The money," she snapped. "From your father's account. It's gone. Everything. What did you do?" I closed my eyes. "You told me never to contact you," I said calmly. "This isn't about that. This is an emergency. That account had thousands. Where is it?" "You had power of attorney?" I reminded her. "You and Chloe." "I wasn't allowed near it." "You left the passbook in the desk," she said. "But the money is missing." There was silence. Then Chloe's voice in the background. "Ask her again. Ask her where she hid it." Eleanor came back on. "Alice, this is serious. We made plans. I put down deposits. Chloe quit her job. We counted on that money." "You never checked the balance before Dad passed?" "Why would we? He barely spent. He just sat in that room." I waited a beat. "Then you didn't know," I said. "There wasn't much left." "Impossible." "No, not impossible." I told her about the apartment, the venue, the deposits, the letter. "Daniel." Chloe grabbed the phone. "You're lying." "I'm not. You took more than we ever got. Dad made that choice. You weren't there." "He knew what he was doing." Chloe's voice broke. "So that's it. That's the inheritance. A wedding and some rent money." I suppose it was. "Did he think that made us even?" I didn't answer. Eleanor got back on the line. Her voice was quieter now. "We have nothing left, Alice. I already paid for the cruise, and the house needs work we can't afford. There's nothing coming in. We need help. Just until things settle." "You told me," I said, "that I'd never be part of the family again, that I should leave and never come back." "That was before. No, that was exactly who you are." She didn't reply. I ended the call and blocked the number. I didn't hear from them again, not directly. But word has a way of traveling. The cruise couldn't be refunded. Eleanor had paid in full, convinced she'd be replenished by the estate. Chloe had already posted about it online. Photos of suitcases, captions with palm trees. They canceled, but the money was gone. They tried to hold on to the house, but the pipes were old, the roof needed patching, and no one wanted to invest in a property with 2 names on the deed and no savings to fix it. They sold, not at market price. It was fast and quiet and lower than what Eleanor had expected. After fees and moving costs, there wasn't much left. They moved into a condo on the other side of town. Smaller, no yard, no porch light. Chloe went back to work. Temp jobs. She tried borrowing from friends, but people had grown tired, especially after she'd told them she'd be well off soon. Whatever relationship she'd been chasing fell apart. Men stopped calling. Eleanor tried to return to her part-time gig at the consignment store. They'd already filled the position, and at her age, jobs don't come easily. I never responded. I didn't need to. Their story was unfolding with or without me. The only thing I allowed myself to think was this: it was never about revenge. It was just about walking away, finally, without guilt. We got married in early fall. It was quiet, just a few close friends, no fanfare. The venue was the one Dad had circled in the brochure, tucked behind a grove of oaks with a porch that caught the evening light. Daniel stood beside me, steady as ever. I wore a simple dress, no veil. There were no empty chairs, but I felt him there. We framed the letter and hung it by the front door of our new apartment. The ink had faded just slightly at the edges, but the words still held. Take care of yourself first. You've done more than enough for me. Sometimes when I leave for work or come home late, I pause in front of it just for a second. He didn't leave me a fortune. He left me peace. And I think maybe that was the point all along. Some people inherit houses. Others inherit silence. I used to think the quiet ones, those who stayed behind, who did the work no one thanked them for, had no story worth telling. But maybe that's never been true. Maybe you were the one who packed up your father's things alone. Maybe you were the one who paid the bills when no one else showed up. Maybe no one ever said, thank you, or you mattered, and still you stayed. If you've been erased from your own family story, this one was for you. You don't need to explain. You don't need to defend why you left or why you never went back. But if there's a word someone should have said to you, one word that still sits in your chest, just leave it here. I will understand.